Alicia, so you left Big Pharma and then you also started a restaurant and now you are building a tech company. Can you tell me, a health tech company? Can you so for me, you're the queen of pivoting, and I think there's so much power in pivoting. Can you tell me what gave you the courage to pivot and why do you think it's necessary for women to drop what's not working and go after what you believe in?
Well, we just had a mastermind dinner this past week that we were together and this conversation came up. And, women have been taught, I think specifically, that if we give up, we're failing, right? And I think what's so unique about women is our ability to multitask, to do all of these different things. And so, one of my favorite quotes is, if it feels hard, it is. And so, like, that's an invitation, right? That when you come up to that, is this serving me or is it not? And my kid got sick, so that made it really easy, right? When I was up at that line, I mean, I literally looked from going to college and working at Pfizer for close to 10 years and starting this restaurant, and like I'd worked so hard, right, to get to this point, and then having to make a decision to put it all down. And it really made me reevaluate, right? Like, who am I? And am I who these titles are? Or am I something else? And I really came up with, like, this needs to happen because nobody else is doing it, right? And so I'm building an AI powered pediatric health platform that's helping parents personalize vaccine and early childhood wellness decisions because no one else is doing it. And so I think that's what's wild, right? Like, here's a mom in Toledo, Ohio, who experienced this, and there is a world, not just a country, a world full of medical professionals that you can't turn on social media or the news right now and not touch this subject. And the only thing that's happening is politics in regards to this. Parents don't want politics, they want a solution. And so that's why I'm building, that's why I pivoted. And it's also a reminder, I think, for all of us that I had to go through all of that to get here, to know when to pivot. But it felt hard. And then that was the invitation into, am I where I need to be? Or do I need to take that sharp right turn and go over there? And I needed to go take that sharp right turn.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much power to me in knowing when to pivot and being able to pivot. We've pivoted so many times in our companies, and I think it's what keeps you alive. And it's so easy to do the same thing for many, many years because it's what you're used to. It's what you're comfortable with. And so you stay there, but I think if you stay there long enough, you will get stuck there. And then that's the danger too. And I love what you talked about because I think a lot of what we build comes out of the failures that we have experienced. So you're building this tech company, this health tech company, because the healthcare industry failed you. And you're working in a science center, running a science center because there's a part of traditional education that fails students. And so that's the gap that the science center fills. And so I feel like there's so much opportunity in failure. So I'm interested, as a woman CEO who is running a major institution, how do you feel, what is your vision for that? So do you go into running this organization with the idea that we are trying to fix the failure
Mhm.
or we're just trying to change an industry?
That's a big question. We have a program at the Science Center. It's called Failures and Opportunity, and really kind of setting even kids up that you will fail. You will fail. I fail every day, somehow, some way, shape, or form. Something didn't go my way. I made a mistake in doing that, but to learn that it's not all over. I do think young people today are so afraid of making a mistake. They want to get everything right. They want their questions answered. They want to be wearing the right clothes, to doing the right thing, not make a mistake ever, ever, ever. And then it freaks them out. I think you should be comfortable with failure. I think you should be very okay with it and realize what's happening, because that is a learning moment right then. We use that line, like, how many times did Thomas Edison fail with the light bulb before he got it right? Everybody fails. My biggest failure, one of them, many, if you want to alphabetize, we can have dinner or drinks one day, but the Science Center had to close, in 2008, 2007, actually, we closed with that. And it was like devastating of what was actually happening. And at that point in time, I was like, this is the worst possible thing that could ever, ever happen. And then I learned about heroes. I learned about people that showed up and how a community even rallied together. And now we've been running 18 years under Imagination Station. I've got 25 years there. And sometimes I'll even say to them, what's the worst thing that can happen? Because I've experienced some really bad things here. So breathe. You're not going to fail. And getting adults to live that too. Like we teach that. And I will still talk to my team and say, are you practicing what you're preaching? Or, because we forget it sometimes. But I think everybody should take a look at missteps, missed moments. I don't know, failure sometimes has a negative way to it, but I think they're
Well, I
lessons.
think especially women, right? Because of the statistic of you have to have 100% of the qualifications to apply for the job.
More
Yeah,
sometimes.
and it's like we've been taught that like there's this perfection piece, and I think what's really interesting is men who are CEOs, the statistic something like 80% of them failed miserably to get where they're at. And here is women, right? It's like the stakes feel too high, but failure is actually a prerequisite
It actually
to success, right?
Yes,
And so we're
yes.
sitting here like,
It
no,
is.
no,
It
but
is.
we're really holding ourselves back. And it's
Yeah.
been beautiful to watch you through. I mean, I've been here a really long time, and to see you practice that, I hope as we're having this conversation, like again, to remind people watching, this is a prerequisite to success is to embrace those failures that's going through to get to, right? And so I'm so grateful you shared that
Thank
story.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think your comment, though, men and women even pursuing careers, and bring us back if I get you off topic, but that a woman looks at a job application, and if they don't check everyone highly, they're like, I'm not qualified. I'm not going to apply. And I think a man can look at it and be like, yeah, I can do that, and then we'll apply. We hold ourselves back sometimes out of like, but you're right. We feel we have to have 150% of qualifications or experience sometimes before going for something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's why I try so hard to tell women that you don't have to have it all together. You don't have to have all the qualifications because honestly, though, every seat I've ever been in, I've never been qualified for. Like, never. Any position I ever held, any job I ever held, I never had the qualifications to be there. But I was always confident that I could do it. Right? I didn't have that. I need to have all of these qualifications. I never had that. I think maybe that could be a part of just how I grew up and where I grew up at. That you really had to make your own way and you
Mhm.
had to run through the wall or it wasn't going to happen. Like no one was coming to save you. And so I had that bulldog mentality that I didn't care what the paper said that I needed. If I felt like I was qualified to be at the table, I applied for being at the table. And I think it served me very, very well. And I think when you just develop that mentality, then you just see things from a different perspective. You realize when you get at the table that all of those men around the table, they also don't really know what they're doing. They're also not so overly qualified that they're so amazing and a lot of men are wonderful. They're wonderful.
Yes.
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is they're not 100% perfect either.
Mhm.
They're figuring out it as they go also. And so just being in that room and being a voice at the table and helping as a collective group figure it out is really, really powerful too. Absolutely, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. So another thing that I think is really interesting is that you're raising seed money and you're used to levies and and capital campaigns and so on and so forth. So you are two women who are raising money. You know what it's like to walk into a room and ask for what you need, and I think that's a pain point for a lot of women is that they shrink and they feel uncomfortable walking into these powerful rooms and spaces where usually you're the only woman. I think it's like 2% of women get actually funded for these for their startups. And so how do you walk in a room as a woman and ask for what you need specifically when it's money?
That's money. I think here's a little bit of work and research you have to do. So for the Science Center, I think it is easier than necessarily what I would define personal passion projects. Because for the Science Center, if I'm looking at people that invest in us and support us, we have a wide range of programming or efforts. So I need to pay attention to what's happening in the community, what is motivating our donors, and aligning. I'm not saying create specific programs, but if I have a girl power program or I have an adult science program or I have a capital effort, what are they so that I can share what aligns maybe with their focus, but then what is our programs that we have? I think the moment you try shifting things off of your mission of who you are to mold into something completely different, you're losing your rudder there of what it is. But listening to what maybe donors might like, preschool programs for young children, or building a new theater, whatever that might be for their reasoning, and then align it with some of their issues. Know who you're walking into the room with, but stay true to your mission and who you are, because that is why you're there. Don't bend on that.
Yeah. I love that. What about you? You're going in some big rooms and you're asking for some real money. Like, how are you doing that?
Yeah, so I have to go back, right? Like, I think there's this difference of how boys and girls are being raised. And I'm sure, right, being in a science center, this is something that gets tackled or talked about every day. But it's interesting, right? The first thing I would say is you just have to know that you're allowed in the room and you're allowed to ask for the money, right? And here's why, right? So one of my first sales job out of college was selling office equipment. It's one of the most brutal sales jobs. And one of the first books I read out of college was by Zig Ziglar, and it was something like I can't remember the title, but the takeaway was you have to hear so many no's before you hear a yes. And it's a math problem. It's an equation. So I think as women, when we hear no, we take it personal, right? Because again, girls traditionally, stereotypically, are raised, right, to be more accommodated. And so I think we get into the real world and then it's like we hear no and it's like, what's wrong with me? What happened? There's nothing wrong with you, right? You just have to hear so many no's. And so that was my first takeaway, and why people are like, gosh, you come off as fearless. And I'm like, I was taught young. The next thing, like fast forward, right, 12 years to where I am now, and I'm in tech and I have been for the past year, and I'm learning so much, right? And what I'm learning is that 3% of women get capital funding from VC, and only 3 to 5% are getting those early checks from angels. And so I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a pattern girl, right? And so like if this is what's happening, I must get into these rooms. But I think we've also been taught too that, right, we just have to show up and do the thing and it will come to you. I've actually been talking to investors about this. I'm like, hey, do you know that only 3 to 5% of women are getting funding? And they're like, really? Like they had no idea. And here's what's really interesting and why I have no problem now walking into a room is that Boston Consulting Group, they did a report back in 2018, and women actually, for every dollar invested into their company, gives a return of 78 cents on that dollar, and men return 31 cents on that dollar. So women have a 2.5 better return on investment. And so you better believe when I go into that room that this is a selling point, right? We're under-resourced, we're underfunded, and we're still bringing a 2.5% better return. Like, how could you not invest in more women? And so it's for sure been my path, but also like I'm a data girl, right? And that's what investors want. And when they understand this data, like I'm not being shy about it. So we need women. They're making 80% of purchasing decisions in the United States, but yet we have no products or services for us or our children that will accommodate that need. Like, this is not something to shy away from. This is the opportunity in the room. And when you understand it, you're able to ask for the money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So you just got to find that opportunity. You got to know where you fit in and you got to be confident in that. And you have to do your research, as you were saying. Like, you got to know what it is that you're asking for and who your audience is.
And that you're going to hear no, right? Like
Yeah.
I've
That's
talked to
important.
at least 30 investors at this point, right? And I have like 28 of them who've said no, and I have 2 right now that are talking to me, but that was the numbers game to get there.
Those are lessons, though. Even like, I think that that's really hard, is getting used to the no. You get more no's than you get yeses. But the idea that even if you ask, then, well, why? Is it not the right time? Is it not the right alignment? Come back in 3 months. Oh, let me share. You learn, and then even the next ask or the next time. But I think those are still lessons in doing it. But like, not being devastated by the first no when asking.
It's such a great point because I refined my deck from some of those no's. Not everybody gave feedback, but you're so right. Like and also hearing the no, but the why, and being able to improve some things
Yeah.
along the
Or
pivoting, right? Like,
or even you're like, oh, I didn't know I said that. You missed it, but I'll say it earlier than later because I told you that. You know, what I mean, you don't want to say that right
It's
then, but
such a
yeah, I know
Right.
what
great
you mean. Yeah,
point.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think that's such a skill that we have to learn as women because the first no, the second no can take us out. And I think so many women stop at that because they're like, oh, I didn't think it was going to be this hard. I didn't think that people were going to reject me because that no can feel like rejection if you perceive it the wrong way, right? Like you said, it
Yeah.
might be right, not right now, or, come back to me later or whatever. And it might just be no. It might not be a good fit, and that's okay too, but it doesn't mean anything about you personally, and if we stop internalizing those no's as rejection,
Mhm.
then I think it will help us give us the power to keep going, and I think that's what we need. I would love to see women and girls be taught how to sell. Like, I
Yeah.
think, because that's something that we have to, no matter if we're a CEO, no matter if
Yeah.
we're a tech startup, like, no matter, whatever we're doing, we have to learn how to sell. And you can't learn how to sell efficiently and effectively if you can't not internalize the word no, right? If you can't handle a no, you're not going to be good at sales. And everything is about selling.
Yeah.
So I would like to see, like you said, you started early, but most of us did it.
Yeah.
Most of us had to go through the no's, internalize it,
Mhm.
figure out that
Yeah.
has nothing to do with us, etc. And that takes a lot of time. And it takes some women out, completely out of the game.
Completely out.
And so if we can learn early, like you did, what this
Mhm.
actually means
Yeah.
and where we're missing it and refine our decks and go back to square one and try again and try again. But you're so right. Men they're not bothered by the word no, like whatsoever. They don't make it mean anything about them and they just keep going.
Well, there's also, I'm a stats girl, like clinical data stats, but they also attribute that there's research to support that because more boys are in sports, they understand, they learn, they hear no, they're being coached appropriately. And so it's also something that as I look back now, I see more and more girls getting involved in sports or STEM or the sciences, right? And so it's important, and there's so much failure in science, right? That's part of science, the scientific theory, right? Improving these things wrong and being able to move forward from there and the takeaways. So I'm hopeful that as I see my daughter and her friends, like they're getting more involved in these things, and so I'm hopeful they're naturally and organically learning. I mean, most women, anyways, they're selling all day long. They just don't
They
they
just
don't
don't
know
know
it,
They
it.
don't
right?
think about
Exactly.
it. They
They
don't
don't
think
They don't
about it.
think about it
exactly.
that
Yes.
way. And
That's
so I
right.
think we
That's
have to get the
right.
line out of like what we've been taught sales are, and even just asking me to do this podcast, right? Like there's an element of like selling the opportunity and doing it. We're doing it all day long, or talking to our spouses about the things that we want, that we're working on getting, right? Family vacations, right? New homes, like things of this. And so we're doing it. We just have to realize it's taking and applying it to these other areas of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because we're so um kind of used to doing it in the philanthropic world,
True.
like we give ourselves permission to do it when it's philanthropic because it's for a good cause, we have people behind it, we're serving people, we're helping people, and so we feel a level of confidence in that. Like I'm okay with that, right? And there's somehow a bad connotation when it's business, when it's in the marketplace, and it's not necessarily philanthropic. But really, if like all business is serving people, whether it's nonprofit or for profit, the you're serving people. It is a service that you are providing, a service that has value. So, but we have to, as women, I feel like we have to connect making money with a good cause, which is not bad because women are way more generous than men are when it comes to financially and supporting things that matter to them. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think we need to take the ick out of women in business making actual money and being okay that it is a for-profit business. And so I know like you're swimming in that world too. And so how do you deal with that?
I get asked often if what I'm working on is a for-profit or nonprofit. And I guarantee you that question is not being asked to the men who
At
show
all.
up talking about a
At,
tech company.
at all.
The other question I often get is, well, you're not a doctor And so how, right? Like how could you be working on a health tech company? I'm like, oh, you mean like Mark Cuban who has cost plus drugs, who's not a doctor,
Right.
or any of the men
Exactly.
who are starting EMR or Teladoc,
Yes.
or they're running institutions like ProMedica, Randy Ostra, who had an MBA. Like there's such a double standard here, and so that to me is what we're breaking, right? There are brilliant people who are entrepreneurs that you don't, again, it's not about a title, right? It is about an energy, it is about a mission, it is about a passion. And when you can group those things together, most entrepreneurs and millionaires are ADHD and dyslexic, right? It's a pattern, it's a way your brain works in order to bring all of this together. And so I would argue that we actually don't need more medical professionals at this point correcting the failed medical institution. It's actually individuals who have experienced, who are entrepreneurs sitting on the outside, bringing in the surrounding talent, right, to be able to foster all of these new products and services that we're needing. And so, yeah, it's been interesting as a female to walk into these spaces, and whether it's raising the money or just raising the need, there's always this experience side that comes back to it. And so I think as women, we just have to have courage around who it is that we are, the skill sets that we have, and the ability that right now in history, what is needed from us in order to bring these things forward. And so, yeah, it's interesting that between the money that needs raised and solutions, that wait a minute, it's like this rocky smack of like, you are the exact person for this job.
That's right.
You are the exact person for this job. And so it's funny you're wearing an eagle on your jean jacket, because there's a quote I read a few weeks ago that you have to be willing to fly alone. And I find myself a lot of times in those pockets, and I have never been comfortable, more confident, and more ready to tackle this when it is one of the most controversial topics on the planet right now. But again, if not me,
Then who?
then who?
That's
And
right.
so like that's where I'm at within that question right now.
That's right. I love that. That's absolutely right. Well said. Yes. Period. Right.
Period.
So as a woman CEO, I know there are a lot of young girls who, that would be a dream of theirs to one day become a CEO. How do you carry that? First of all, what and like what's the hardest
Uh-huh.
lesson that you've learned as a CEO?
Um, ugh. So honestly, sometimes I don't use my title, and some people on my team will be like, "You need to use your title. You're one of the only women CEOs in the arts in community culture organizations in our community." And I'm like, well, sometimes I think it hijacks a little bit of the conversation, that depending on where I'm at, I just want you to know me from the science center, or do I need to tell you my title for you to respect me, or to think, like, I think everybody deserves a chance with that. Being the CEO though has been a big lesson in the lines that I get to see everything. When I was first director of marketing, I just looked at that slice of the pie, and then I now see how all of my other teams come together and how we have to collaborate, but they're seeing it through one set of eyes, and you're seeing the whole picture, but you want to look at it 3, 5 years down the road at the same time, not just today. So it is balancing your vision and what other people, and trying to get them to come up to it. And I think it's a little bit of vulnerability, to be honest. I think that you're in the role to make the decisions. You're in the role to take us to the future. Um, don't sit back, but other people might have great ideas. Make sure you're listening to them. It was here, actually, we hosted an event here for women, and we had a panel discussion. And one of the women that came was Dr. Gabby from the University of Toledo, and she is a cosmetic chemist. But she insisted on bringing some of her students with her. So she brought like 5 or 6 girls to that event. And, it's a room full of 100 women sitting chatting. And then this one girl raises her hand because a woman that was speaking was saying, "Do you have a tribe? You need a tribe, and you need to know who your people are, and you can do anything." And she stood up in front of all of this, a stranger, and said, "I don't have a tribe. How can I get one?" That young lady walked out of there with more business cards that night. That was probably a game changer for her right there. Willingness to show a little vulnerability, that I didn't know something, I need help, and help me. And everyone came together. that was a lesson for me in the lines of how do you use your own vulnerability. I don't know what we need to do here. What do you think? I mean that sincerely. It's not a test. I want other ideas. I think you need to expose yourself at that point, not just my title is here. I'm a person. I need help. We need to show all of that. And I think those are lessons then for my team to see as well. It's how you walk, right?
Did you ever have aspirations of being the CEO of all
No.
this? Like, it just sort of
No.
happened to
I
you,
didn't
though?
think
So
I
you
was
weren't
gonna
like,
be
you
I
weren't
didn't think I was gonna be in museums, and I didn't realize that was an opportunity. My first job was at an ad agency, and I was like, "I'm gonna be an ad executive. This is what I'm gonna do." And, one of my clients was a museum, and they were getting ready to do a grand opening, and I really got into it. And then they formed their own marketing team on the inside, and then that's how it started. But that was not a career path for me that I thought was even something I wanted to do. And I'm like, your comment earlier too about nonprofit, for profit, a business is a business. That's a tax identification. If it is a coffee shop, if it is a tech company, if it is a science center, you are a business, and how you're operating is very important, and not to be taken down a notch or, oh, well, no, we're all businesses. We're all operating together in the same format. And making money is not a bad thing. If you're investing it back into the community, you're investing it into research, however, it's not a bad thing. You shouldn't shy away from it.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think, though, has kept you in this role so long? What's been the
Um,
secret to your
the
success?
secret sauce.
Yeah.
So when I just actually had a conversation with a board member yesterday, and I said, when I first moved here, I said 5 years in a director's position, and then I'm leaving. I want to go to Chicago. That was my intent. I wanted to work at a big ad agency in Chicago. I thought these were stepping moves. And then things evolved here. I got new challenges. There were things that I was invited to participate in that I was scared to death of and got to do. So each time, if it was stepping into that role, reopening the Science Center, fighting to keep it here, building a theater, there were always new challenges that kept me very interested. And I fell in love with the community. I fell in love, and I kind of grew up here. I've never been anywhere longer than I've been here. Uh, but I've learned lots of lessons. I have a wonderful sense of tribe, of people that I can go to that tell me when I'm off my rocker. Um, I call it my chosen family, and I think that's important too. So it was a whole life thing, not just the job, but I did get challenged in each of those steps.
Mhm,
Hmm.
mhm, for
But I love
sure.
it.
But there had to be something in you that they said, "She's the woman for this job. She's the woman to lead this organization." That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Why?
find that thing in Lori, which I already see it, but I want
Yeah.
that other people I want people to hear from your perspective, what do you believe that thing is that people saw in you that they trusted you to run this very important institution?
I think it's loyalty, a little dedication. I mean, once I think that one things that I value, like I had three things, like people, promises are two things that are important to me. So who are the people around me? And if I promised I was going to do something, I'm going to do it. I have a little brain fog right now, so there's some things that I'm forgetting. So if people's watching, give me a little grace. But I think that you need to value your word, say what you mean. I think that people see that. I am dedicated. Once I said I'm in, I'm in. And I'm going to value what we're doing together. There's a little bit of like trial and error in some of those cases, but I think they thought it was genuine when I was showing up. I think you learn things in the lines of people that show up to help. I, I had to go door to door in the rain. I wanted to cancel that day. I'm like, it's raining really bad. And 4 or 5 other people showed up and we all went. And those are the moments that teach you to be like, if people show up, go with them and make sure you're there. So I don't, it's hard saying it about yourself, but I think like wanting to be present and creating a valuable thing in the community. And I think I've got a new book. I haven't read it yet. It just started. It's called Mattering, and it's about building a life of purpose in your community and like how that. I think that's important in what you're striving for,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. I think
So
that's so important. Yeah, let your yes be yes and your no be no,
yeah.
and be diligent and show up and have that
Mhm.
fortitude. Yeah, I think those are all.
Somebody said to me too, do it, don't lose it. Like you could have a list. I used to have a list lots of times, like all the things I wanted to do. And then it was like, and honestly, 2020 hit. I'm like, I'm going to do these things. I want to go here. I want to travel here. I want to do this. I kept saying, extending it and extending it. Don't do that. That fills your soul too. Making sure you're filling that take. What do moms say? I don't have children, but like, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't help them. You can't be there. So those things are important to make sure you're doing all for yourself as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So you've been in leadership for a very long time. Since I've known you, since I've met you in some form or another, you are in the right positions and in the right places. What do you know now, though, that maybe you believed back then that you don't believe now?
Mm. I mean, Lori just said something like, make your yes and your no. And I think this is something that haunted me going through a stent that I did with a child who was sick. And I don't think, this is why I believe more women are holding themselves back, especially when you have children, because it's chaos. And I believe, there was a part where I was trying so hard to make so many people happy, and it was a part of the crash, not just for my daughter and her health, but also for me. And I think that women believe that we have to hold this all together in order to be successful. And like I literally, and I'm not joking, I literally at one point had to put every single thing down. And I had this belief that if I did that, I couldn't be where I'm at right now. And hardly anybody noticed that I put all of these things down. I think there was this belief around judgment. Well, like, what would people think if this was seen as a failure? And so, as I look back, it's really taking the cornerstone of the entire conversation that we've had. But my biggest takeaway is somebody starting off in her 20s to where I'm at coming up in a few months at 45. You got to get to your North Star. And anything else, any other noise beside it, I mean, again, you have to listen, right? People are going to tell you things, but I think you have to bring it through a filter. You have to bring it through a filter and ask yourself, is this true or is this not? Is this something that I have something to take away from that? Or is this something that is noise that is getting in my way from moving? And I would never be at my North Star and part of where I'm at now if it was listening to all of that noise or belief system around this is what success is. This is what you do to be a good leader. I mean, it was literally blowing up the definition of leadership and quite frankly, coming up with mine.
Yeah.
And really just following God's North Star and building along picking up those cookie crumbs along the way towards it. And so that would be my feedback, right? Is like what's noise and what's truth and building a filter. And so how do you build a filter? I have an acronym, right? Like it's called walk and it's the analogy of walk towards your North Star. It's who am I? Like if you can't answer that question in a couple of words, like start there. And then the A, what action do you need to take in order to get to your North Star? What do you got to let go of? Those are those beliefs, right? I was made my whole life to feel like one of those difficult, aggressive females. And quite frankly, I'm just a shit starter. It's just part of who I am. Like doing things in a manner that are unacceptable is a non-negotiable for me. Like those are the problems I like to fix, right? So it's who I am. And then the last one, the K, is like, who's the keel of your heel? Who's your tribe? Who are those people that when the days get hard are gonna again give you that rocky smack and be like, this is who you are, right? Like, no, like giving up is not an option. But that's the big thing is looking back and believing who other people wanted me to be as a leader and me embracing who I am as a leader. And just that changed at different points in my life. And you have to be open to that too and letting certain things go and picking other things up towards where the big guys got you going. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, you have to be aware. Like sometimes we can just get so in the everyday of what we're doing. We're not actually taking inventory. We're not actually sitting with the things we're doing, the decisions we're making. We're over here. We're saying yes to this. We're on this board. We're on this community group. Like we're doing so much and we don't, because we're trying to be helpful. We're trying to be involved in the community. We're trying to do all the right things, but we actually just don't stop to think like, is any of this what I'm supposed to be doing right now? Is any of this what I want to be doing right now? You know what I mean? And just being honest with ourselves about that. That's, a life well lived is a life that is looked at meticulously. And I don't think we probably do enough of that. And we probably could get a little better at that because you're right. Once we do that, then we can figure out exactly where we should be going, where we want to go, and what the mission of our lives actually is, because we don't want to get to the end having been completely busy, completely burned out, completely all of these things, and we actually missed the whole entire point, you
If I
know?
didn't put everything down, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing
That's
right
right.
now,
Mhm.
right? And so
Yeah.
again, like getting on the entire other side of that belief system and again standing in my truth, like I mean, I got mentor advice. I got advice from so many people that I don't know, like I think you should keep your hand in something and like I just side of me that like that wasn't I cannot do that, right? Like I have nothing left. The only thing that demands my attention right now is the health and life of my daughter, right? And
Absolutely.
that was enough. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm
Yeah.
building a healthcare
That's
company,
right.
right?
And I wonder if after that quiet season of your life, when you started back up again and you reemerged, how many of those people are still back there? And how many people did you bring forward with you?
I've certainly lost a lot of people. And whether that's just due to the nature of like, here's where I'm going, right? And it's following that North Star. But then on the other side of that equation, and this could be a whole nother topic that we get on is, you know, we all don't have to agree on everything, right? Like this is a very polarizing conversation around what I'm currently building the healthcare company around, and not everybody agrees with me. So it's a big small town, right? And so I mean, I have people that I've known since I've been in Toledo for almost 2 decades, and I have people that now see me that turn their back when they see me because they don't agree with this conversation. And again, I think it goes back to what Lori said, like if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And so that's another takeaway I believe from this podcast today is like if you're going there,
Yeah.
you are going to lose some
You're
people.
gonna lose some
Like it's a
people.
prerequisite,
It
right? Like you're
actually is.
going to
Yes.
Happen.
lose
Yeah.
some people along the way because it's
Yeah,
weight,
that's
right?
right.
It's weight holding you down. And so yeah, if you're going there, you're going to leave some people
Yeah,
here. And that's
yeah, and
okay.
It's
that's
okay.
okay.
It's
It's
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Not everybody's gonna like what you do. Not everybody's gonna like you. We have to be okay with that. We're not here to be liked by everybody.
Yes.
We're here for what we believe is our mission and our purpose, and that's the thing we have to put our hand
Well,
to.
like I think with the internet or just exposure with social media, like I wish the one thing that we could do better as a culture or as humanity right now, though, is like honoring each other's
Yeah.
space, right? Like we don't have to agree, we can agree to disagree. And some things, right, they do have a line, but I mean, like that's what's so wild about even this conversation that I'm in is I used to feel one way. And then now through this lived experience or having worked at Cherry Street Mission and really understanding poverty versus what I thought about poverty, like this vulnerability, these experiences are what have allowed me to again want to lean in with people. And instead, my new phrase, one of my favorite phrases is tell me more about that. Like I don't know everything. And especially what I've been through and where I am now, like I am completely open
Yeah.
to wanting to learn more because that's what we need
Yes.
right now is women, as business owners, as community members, as nonprofits. Like this world is changing and I think we're all going through like a burn it down,
Yeah.
right? Like era right now and like we should be rebuilding together, but that's going to take these crucial conversations. And if we're going to have them, then that means we getting together at tables
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
and being able to be open and agree to disagree around if we don't all agree on this, what can we build
That's right.
together?
That's something I think that has been lost, and I don't know if it is a little bit the advancement of social media in our lives that if you need to find like people, you find them, and then you're all drinking the same Kool-Aid, if you will. But when is it okay? You can disagree, and you might disagree on one thing, but you agree on two other things as a whole. But why is it that, oh, we don't disagree, you're wrong, I'm right, and it's all over? It is that understanding that can we agree to disagree on that topic, but we agree on this topic. And I guess it all matters on what you're talking about or what that might be. But the idea of learning a little bit, and um, the Science Center is my job and I love it. And I worked very hard to get where I'm at. But there are also so many other things about me, that all are out there too. And that makes me a whole person, and I think like, listening to other people, somebody told me at 18, you care about what everyone else is thinking. In your 40s, you don't care. You're only caring about what you're going through. And then by the time you hit 60, you realize no one else cared. Period. Like, and it is your life and your choice. You said something not it was on, actually I saw it on social media that you posted, but you're not the victim. Or are you choosing? We all have choices to make every day. Don't act like you didn't have a choice. You maybe chose the best option, or both were hard. But do you want to be a victim, or do you want to take charge of some things? And that is a choice that you're making as well, in life. Hmm.
In closing, what advice would you give one another? You're right now in the midst of building a health tech company. You are raising money. You are talking to these VCs. You are going in these rooms. You're being told no. You're being told yes. You're being told maybe. So I want to know, as a woman who is familiar with raising money
Mhm.
and stepping into these rooms, and I'm sure there has had to been an occasion where you probably were the only woman in the room.
Sure. It's happened once. Yes.
And
Every day. Every day.
Yes.
what advice would you give Alicia in where she's at right now in her journey?
I hope you don't lose sight of why you started it over the course of time of getting in different rooms and different people saying things to you, that you are willing to learn from those moments, but don't lose sight of why you're there, even if you got 4 no's in a row or 5 no's, to keep going with it. But don't lose the reason why you started it, because that goes back to that core, and let others water it down, if you will, or change it. Hmm.
I love that.
Hmm.
And what would you give Lori, as a powerful woman CEO, who I know she doesn't like to use her title much, but she is indeed in a very important seat. She's in a big seat. And the work that she does literally changes generations and changes the future for children. And it's such important work. What advice would you give her for her season that she's in right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it's advice for Lori. It's advice for the women in our community for Lori. I have watched Lori do ridiculously amazing things in this community, as we've all talked about. There's nothing more shiny in not just downtown Toledo, but our region right now than Imagination Station. And it is to the work and the dedication and the loyalty that she has brought up. And what I would say though is that, we need women right now coming up to help give access to what Lori has done. And we need more people downtown. And that, while Lori has done, again, a ridiculously amazing job, we need to come up beside Lori as a region and a community. And so I'm sure, right, like reminding you of that, of course, but like access is such an important conversation right now. And for women in our community, I mean, this might piss some people off, and maybe again, that's okay. But we spend an ungodly amount of money on our personal care items, our children, going out to eat, trips. And I'm not here to say we shouldn't do those things. What I'm encouraging us to think about is that 40% of the wealth in the United States is going to transition to women over the next 40 years. But that transition and that need to understanding that happens now. And so continuing to get access to Lori and her organizations, our dollars, can we, right, instead of spending $1,000 on a purse, can it be 500? Can that $500 go to organizations like Lori's? I think these are no doubt the decisions. Like, if we say we want to lift up women, then that is going to take intentional conversations like the ones we're having right now. And they are hard because they're going to require us to change. And so to bring it back to you, like encouraging those crucial conversations, because what you have done is unprecedented. We now need women lifting you up, and we need women coming beside you to infiltrate those dollars in the organizations to get more people down here and to continue the great work that you've done. So that's the advice that I would give us and Lori, is the access and the ask, because you've earned it
Thank you.
and you deserve it.
Thank you.
Hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yes. Thank you for
you.
having us. This has been so fun, sis.
Yes, thank you.